sailing is a nay-nay. I thought it would be safer. There's a sail. But I did not sail. I para-dragged, I para-bounced, I para-waved. Still, I continued to drag my near-lifeless body. This was in Maui. There were some tourists from Japan on the beach. They were fascinated with me. They thought it was a show, and I don't blame them. He goes up and he goes under. Watch. He goes up again. You know, he goes like a free-weary. They said something to me afterwards. They said, how come you don't let go? You got a point there. I wish I'd talked to you before I went.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, Trump Tuesday, January the 27th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and President Trump. All that and more when I get back. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now, Varney and Company.
So we're obviously going to be watching, of course, again, that Fed meeting begins today, concludes tomorrow with that interest rate decision, and, of course, the press conference from Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Ashley Davis, Chris McMahon, great to have you both on the show. Really appreciate it. Dow down 329. A lot to unpack in a day where more news is likely to break very soon. Varney and Company up now. Stuart, good morning.
Good morning, Show. Good morning, everyone. Movement on ice in Minneapolis. A change of tone and perhaps policy. President Trump held a 2-hour meeting in the Oval Office with DHS Kristi Noem and her top aide, Corey Lewandowski. Noem keeps her job, but Tom Homan takes over in Minneapolis. He will report directly to Trump. Today, Homan meets with Mayor Jacob Fry. There's talk of cooperation instead of confrontation. The governor, the mayor, President Trump, they've all spoken by phone. They agree on lowering the temperature. To the markets, stocks generally higher, except for the Dow Industrials, which is way down 300 points. The S&P up 14, the Nasdaq up 145. Now, look at United Health. That's the Dow stocks that's shaving 385 points off the Dow Industrials. The earnings missed really badly. The stock is down 16%. That is a whopping seller for that big name stock. There's no joy for Bitcoin today. 87,800 is the price. Gold holding above $5,100 an ounce, very just, is 51.07. Silver holding above $100 an ounce at 111. The price of oil, $60 a barrel, $61 a barrel. The 10-year Treasury yield, last time I checked, it was 4.22. Now it's gone to 4.23. The 2-year coming in at 3.59. Right now it's at 3.60. All right, on the show today, President Trump heads to Iowa. He's speaking on the economy and affordability. He'll be trying to put Minneapolis behind him. He'll be fighting a New York Times poll which suggests the middle class is out of reach for an increasing number of people. And, we really have to cover the weather. This deep freeze is something else. The eastern half of the country still feels like Siberia, and it will keep going for the rest of the week. There is a forecast of more ice and snow for the coming weekend. Ouch. Now, look at this. This is the Hudson River between New Jersey and Manhattan, iced over. If we put the volume up, you can hear the ferry boat crunching through the ice. There, you can't even hear it. The ice, I've not seen that in years. Tuesday, January the 27th, 2026.
And that was Varney and Company, Non-Profit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little motivation.
The only way anything great ever gets done in this world, commitment, consistency.
Oh, I can imagine now doing it every day? You're saying I can't do it anymore for 2 weeks and then quit? Most of you in here, you're quitters. You don't have consistency. You don't have control. You don't have discipline.
You want to be a champion, but you don't want to work like a champion. I dare you to give 120% and stop choking. Most of you won't be successful, not because you can't do it, but you can't outlast your old you long enough to get to your new you. I challenge you just to give a month where you say, for 30 straight days, every practice I'm putting in 120%. When I'm tired, I'm going to keep going. You can't buy discipline. You can't buy drive. You can't buy effort either. No matter how hard you work, there is somebody inside of you that works even harder. No matter how dedicated you are, there's somebody inside you that's more dedicated. No matter how committed you are, there's somebody inside of you that's more committed. I'm trying to get you to push yourself to a point that you have never been to before. Because when you get to that point, you're going to propel to another dimension of your life. Can't nobody stop you but you. You're not average. Stop acting like it. You're not average. Why you being average? You're not average. Why you being good when you're not good? You great. When you gonna step up to the plate? You're greater than that.
What could you be if you worked as hard as you could? What could you be if you imposed real discipline in your life? What could you be?
I want to see how far I can go. I want to see what I can accomplish. I want to see what I can do, what I can be, what I can have. I want to see what my life would look like if I didn't count the cost. You get to a point where you don't count the cost. You just do whatever it takes to get whatever you want. Every single day when I wake up, every minute of the day, every hour of the day, I have an opportunity to give 120%, to give blood, sweat, and tears. Every opportunity is the last opportunity. Every opportunity I have to reprove myself again. Because the day you become content is the day you die. It's all or nothing. It's all day, every day. What you did last week don't count. Today is the only important day. You got 86,400 seconds in a day. And what you do today is going to determine how far you go. What do you do when 1,000 other people want exactly what you want? Sometimes it ain't about who the most talented and gifted. When talent meets talent, talent is no longer enough. Now it's about who has character. Now it's about who has integrity. Now it's about who's dedicated, who's committed. Now it's about who's going to show up on time. You've got to practice. You've got to work. You've got to do your homework. You've got to do your research. It's not easy, but through practice and practice and practice, practice makes improvement. And competency builds confidence. And confidence feeds into competency. See, the better you become, the more confident you feel. And the more confident you feel, the better you want to become. You can always better your best. You can always go beyond anything that you have ever done. You'll never hit a state of perfection. You're always bigger than what you do. You realize that you have no ceiling. That you can better whatever you've done so far. You can go beyond that. You don't become cocky and arrogant, feeling that you've already arrived, as most people have. No, as long as you're breathing, you got some more work to do. There's something else for you to achieve. And I can tell you right now, there's going to be lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of times, in fact, the majority of the time, that you are not going to wake up in the morning and say, dude, I can't wait. I can't wait to go get my ass kicked. That's not going to happen. So you have to say, hey, I'm going to do this regardless of how I feel. I'm going to execute, even if I'm having a bad day. Even if this shit's going wrong. My shit is getting done day in and day out. And that is the fucking secret sauce about winning. Shift your mindset from, I got to feel like doing it, to it doesn't matter if I feel like doing it. I'm going to get it done anyway. Do you have the capacity to execute at a high standard when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it? Because when you don't feel like it is when everybody else quits. And that's when you widen the gap between yourself and everybody else. I'm competing against Joe down the street. And when he comes in on his 4 days and he doesn't feel like it, he does half-ass. But on my 4 days, I'm executing at the highest level because I've developed that skill set of discipline to do so. Over time, I'm going to widen that gap further and further and further away from that dude. And this is how the game works. It is legitimately a mathematical equation. How many days did you win? How many days did they win? It's not luck. It is fucking math. And if you can push yourself to perform on a high level every single day of your life, regardless of how you feel, you'll look around and realize you're the fucking winner.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Mossad.
For over 2 decades, this man killed more Americans than anyone before September 11th. The CIA wanted him dead. The FBI had him on their most wanted list. 6 different intelligence agencies across the world were hunting him at the same time. And yet, nobody could find him. He changed his face with plastic surgery. He never used phones. He never stayed in the same place twice. His own family didn't know what he looked like anymore. The Americans called him the most dangerous terrorist on earth. Israel called him something else. They called him their #1 target. And for 25 years, the best spies in the world couldn't even get close to him. Then one night in Damascus, Syria, in 2008, this ghost finally made a mistake, and Mossad was watching. This is the story of the longest manhunt in Israeli intelligence history, the hunt for Imad Mugnieh, the man they called the Ghost. So who exactly was this guy, and why did so many countries want him dead? To understand that, we need to go back to the beginning, back to a time when Hezbollah was just starting out, and a young man from southern Lebanon was about to become one of the most feared terrorists the world had ever seen. Imad Mugnieh was born in 1962 in a small village called Tair Diba in southern Lebanon. His childhood wasn't anything special. He grew up in a regular family, went to school, and seemed like any other kid in his village. But Lebanon in the 1960s and 1970s was not a peaceful place. The country was divided. Different religious groups were fighting for power. Palestinian refugees had set up camps throughout the country, and tensions were rising every single day. When Mugnieh was a teenager, he did something that would change his life forever. He joined the Palestinian Liberation Organization, also known as the PLO. This was a militant group led by Yasser Arafat, and they were fighting against Israel. Mugnieh became part of their elite unit called Force 17. This was basically Arafat's personal security team, but they did much more than just protect him. They carried out operations, gathered intelligence, and trained in combat. And Mugnieh was good at it, really good. He learned how to plan attacks. He learned how to avoid detection. He learned how to move weapons and people without getting caught. But most importantly, he learned how to disappear. Even back then, as a young man in his early 20s, Mugnieh understood something that most people didn't. He understood that in this world of spies and intelligence agencies, the most valuable skill wasn't how to fight. It was how to become invisible. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon. The PLO was pushed out of the country and Arafat had to flee. But Mugnieh didn't leave. He stayed behind. And that's when everything changed for him. Around this same time, a new group was forming in Lebanon. Iran had just gone through its Islamic Revolution in 1979, and they wanted to spread their influence throughout the Middle East. They sent members of their Revolutionary Guard to Lebanon to train fighters and build a new organization. This organization would eventually become Hezbollah. Mugnieh saw an opportunity. He left what remained of the PLO and joined this new group. But he wasn't just some regular member. Because of his training, his skills, and his intelligence, he quickly rose through the ranks. Within a few years, he was running their military operations. He was planning their attacks, and he was building their security apparatus. But here's where things get really interesting. Unlike other terrorist leaders who loved the spotlight, Mugniya did the opposite. He erased himself. He stopped appearing in public. He stopped letting people take his picture. He started changing his appearance regularly, and he built layers upon layers of security around himself. Most Hezbollah members didn't even know who he was. They knew there was someone at the top making decisions, planning operations, and running things, but they had never seen his face. They didn't know his name. He was a ghost, even within his own organization. Now let's talk about what Mugniya actually did, because the list of attacks linked to him is absolutely horrifying. In April 1983, a truck filled with explosives drove into the United States Embassy in Beirut, Lebanon. The explosion killed 63 people, including 17 Americans. Among the dead were several CIA officers, including the entire CIA Middle East team. This was one of the deadliest attacks on American diplomats in history, and intelligence agencies believe Mugniya planned it, but he wasn't done. 6 months later, in October 1983, 2 trucks loaded with explosives hit their targets almost at the same time. One drove into the barracks where American Marines were sleeping. The other hit French military barracks nearby. The American attack killed 241 service members. The French attack killed 58 soldiers. It was the deadliest single-day death toll for the U.S. Marines since the Battle of Iwo Jima in World War II. Let that sink in. One man planned an attack that killed more Marines in a single day than anything since World War II. After these bombings, the Americans and French pulled their troops out of Lebanon, and Mugniya had achieved what he wanted. He had proven that terrorism works. He had shown that you could hit the most powerful countries in the world and make them run away. This made him incredibly dangerous, and this made him a hero to people who wanted to fight against the West. But Mugniya wasn't satisfied. Over the next few years, he became the mastermind behind a wave of kidnappings in Lebanon. Western hostages were grabbed off the streets and held for years. Journalists, teachers, businessmen, even the CIA's station chief in Beirut, William Buckley, was kidnapped. Buckley was tortured for over a year before he died in captivity. Mugniya was behind all of it. He also became the architect of airplane hijackings. In 1985, TWA Flight 847 was hijacked on its way from Athens to Rome. The plane was forced to land in Beirut, where passengers were held hostage for 17 days. During this time, the hijackers beat and killed Robert Stetham, a U.S. Navy diver who was on the flight. They dumped his body on the runway. The world watched in horror. And the man who planned it all? Imad Mugniya. By the mid-1980s, Mugniya had become the most wanted man in the world. The CIA was desperate to find him. The FBI put him on their list. French intelligence wanted revenge for their soldiers. And Israel, which had been watching Hezbollah grow stronger every day, knew that this one man was the key to everything, but nobody could find him. And the more they looked, the more he seemed to slip away. So how did Mugniya stay hidden for so long? This is where his genius for security really comes through. First, he changed his face multiple times. Intelligence agencies believe he had at least 2, possibly 3, plastic surgeries over the years. The photos they had of him were useless. He could walk right past them on the street and they wouldn't recognize him. Second, he never used electronic communication. No phones, no radios, nothing that could be intercepted or traced. If he needed to send a message, he used human couriers. People he trusted would carry verbal messages or handwritten notes. This made him almost impossible to track using signals intelligence. Third, he never followed patterns. He never slept in the same place 2 nights in a row. He changed cars constantly. He took different routes everywhere he went. Even his closest associates never knew where he would be from one day to the next. Intelligence agencies rely on patterns. They look for habits, routines, things they can predict. Mugniya gave them nothing. Fourth, he limited who knew him. Most people in Hezbollah had never met him. He worked through layers of intermediaries. Even senior leaders in the organization didn't know where to find him. This meant that even if someone was captured and interrogated, they couldn't give up his location because they simply didn't know it. And fifth, he stayed in protected territory. Lebanon, and especially the areas controlled by Hezbollah, was like a fortress for him. Syria was another safe haven. Both countries protected Hezbollah, and both countries made it nearly impossible for Western intelligence agencies to operate freely. Mugniya knew that as long as he stayed in these places, his chances of being caught were low. The Americans tried multiple times to get him. In the places, his chances of being caught were low. The Americans tried multiple times to get him. In the 1980s, they came close once. They had intelligence that he was going to be on a plane flying from Paris to to somewhere in the Middle East. They planned to force the plane to land and capture him, but at the last minute, they found out he wasn't on the flight. Either the intelligence was wrong, or Mougnier had somehow found out and changed his plans. Either way, he escaped. They tried again in 1994. Mougnier was reportedly on a boat in the Mediterranean. The Americans considered a military strike, but the operation was called off. Too risky. Too many things could go wrong. And once again, Mougnier survived. The French also tried to catch him. After the bombing that killed their soldiers, they wanted revenge badly. They worked with various intelligence services to track him down. But every time they got close, he vanished. It was like chasing smoke. Now let's talk about what Mougnier was doing during all this time that everyone was hunting him. He wasn't just hiding, he was building. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, he transformed Hezbollah's military capabilities. He turned a ragtag militia into one of the most effective fighting forces in the Middle East. He established training camps where fighters learned guerrilla tactics, explosives handling, and advanced military techniques. He built an extensive tunnel network in southern Lebanon that would later prove crucial in Hezbollah's wars with Israel. He acquired rockets and missiles from Iran and Syria, building up an arsenal that would one day threaten Israeli cities. And he created an intelligence and security apparatus within Hezbollah that was sophisticated enough to rival state-level spy agencies. In 2000, Israel withdrew from southern Lebanon. They had occupied a security zone in the south for years, but the constant attacks from Hezbollah made it too costly to stay. For many people in the region, this was a huge victory. Hezbollah had done what no Arab army had ever done. They had forced Israel to retreat, and the man behind this victory, Imad Mougnier. But it wasn't just Hezbollah that benefited from his expertise. Mougnier became a kind of consultant for terrorism. Iranian intelligence used him to train operatives. He reportedly helped plan attacks in other countries, including the bombing of a Jewish community center in Argentina in 1994 that killed 85 people and injured hundreds more. He had connections with groups across the Middle East. He was building a network that went far beyond Lebanon. Israel watched all of this with growing alarm. They knew that Mougnier wasn't just a terrorist, he was a strategic threat. As long as he was alive and working, Hezbollah would keep getting stronger and more dangerous. They had tried to kill him before. In 1992, Mossad assassinated Hezbollah's leader Abbas al-Musawi in a helicopter strike. They hoped this would weaken the organization, but Mougnier, who was in charge of security, had survived. And Hezbollah, under new leadership, only grew more powerful. In the years that followed, Mossad kept trying to find Mougnier. They recruited sources inside Lebanon. They intercepted communications. They analyzed every piece of intelligence they could get their hands on. But he was always one step ahead. Sometimes they would get a tip that he was in a certain location, only to find he had left hours before they could act. It was maddening. Here was the best intelligence service in the world, and they couldn't catch one man. Let me tell you about one of the closest calls. In 1994, Mossad tracked Mougnier to an apartment building in Lebanon. They were preparing a strike when something went wrong. Some reports say he got tipped off. Others say he just got lucky. Either way, when they launched their attack, he wasn't there. His brother, Fouad Mougnier, was killed instead. Imad escaped again. This miss was crushing for Israeli intelligence. They had been so close, but they learned something important from it. They learned that Mougnier had sources who could warn him about operations. They learned that their own security might be compromised, and they learned that to get this man, they would need to be even more careful and patient than they had ever been before. After this failed attempt, Mougnier became even more paranoid and security conscious. He knew that someone had come very close to killing him. He knew that the Israelis would try again, so he retreated even deeper into the shadows. He changed his appearance again. He cut off contact with almost everyone from his past. For the next decade, he became truly invisible. But even ghosts can't hide forever. And in the early 2000s, something started to change. The world, after September 11th, 2001, was a different place. The Americans were now fighting a global war on terror. They had invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. They were pouring resources into finding and killing terrorists everywhere. And while their main focus was on Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, they hadn't forgotten about Mougnier. In fact, the CIA director at the time, George Tenet, called Mougnier a bigger threat than bin Laden because of his track record, his skills, and his connections with state sponsors like Iran. The pressure was building. More resources were being dedicated to finding him. Intelligence sharing between agencies improved. Technology advanced. Satellites could see more. Communication intercepts were getting better. The digital age was making it harder and harder for anyone to stay completely off the grid. And then something unexpected happened. In 2006, Hezbollah launched a cross-border raid into Israel. They killed several Israeli soldiers and kidnapped 2 others. Israel responded with a full-scale military operation that became known as the Second Lebanon War. For 34 days, Israel and Hezbollah fought a brutal conflict. Israeli jets bombed targets throughout Lebanon. Hezbollah fired thousands of rockets into Israeli cities. It was the largest conflict in the region in decades. When the war ended, both sides claimed victory. But one thing was clear. Hezbollah had performed far better than anyone expected. Their fighters were disciplined and well-trained. Their defenses were sophisticated. Their tunnel networks allowed them to survive the Israeli bombardment and keep fighting. And the man who had built all of this? Imad Mugnia. For Israel, this war was a wake-up call. They realized that Hezbollah was no longer just a terrorist group. It was a serious military threat. And they knew that as long as Mugnia was alive, this threat would only grow. The hunt for him, which had already been going on for over 2 decades, became even more intense. Now let's get into how Mossad finally tracked him down, because this is where the story gets really interesting. After the 2006 war, Israeli intelligence made finding Mugnia their top priority. They assigned their best people to the case. They used every resource at their disposal, but they also knew they needed help. This man had evaded them for so long that they couldn't afford to go it alone. This is where the Americans came in. The CIA and Mossad have a long history of cooperation, but their relationship isn't always smooth. There are things each side keeps from the other. There are disagreements about tactics and priorities. But when it came to Mugnia, both agencies agreed he needed to be found and he needed to be stopped. So they started sharing intelligence more openly than they had before. American satellites provided imagery. Israeli human sources provided tips. Together, they began to build a more complete picture of where Mugnia might be hiding. But here's the thing about hunting someone like Mugnia. You can't just find him once and launch an attack. He moved too often. He was too careful. You had to find a pattern. You had to identify a time and place where you could be certain he would be. And that was incredibly difficult because, as I mentioned earlier, he almost never followed patterns. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Over the years, Mossad had recruited a network of agents in Lebanon and Syria. Most of them provided low-level intelligence, but one of them, whose identity has never been publicly revealed, managed to get close to Mugnia's inner circle. Not close enough to know where he was at any given time, but close enough to know about events he might attend, meetings, gatherings, celebrations, places where the ghost might briefly appear. In late 2007 and early 2008, this source reported that Mugnia had been spending more time in Damascus, Syria. This was interesting because Syria was a place where he felt safe. Unlike Lebanon, which had various factions and potential informers, Syria was firmly controlled by the Assad regime, which was allied with Iran and Hezbollah. Damascus was supposed to be a sanctuary, but being in a place where you feel safe can make you careless. And that's exactly what seems to have happened. Mugnia began letting his guard down slightly. He started attending more events. He began meeting with people in places that weren't completely secure. And Mossad was watching. The intelligence team started noticing something. Mugnia seemed to favor a particular upscale neighborhood in Damascus called Kafr Sousa. This was a diplomatic area filled with embassies and the offices of various organizations. It was the kind of place where unusual activity might not seem so unusual. And there was one building in particular that caught their attention, an Iranian cultural center that served as a meeting place for Iranian and Hezbollah officials. They began watching this location carefully. They monitored who came and went. They looked for any sign of Mugnia, but they still couldn't be sure he was there. They needed something more. That something came in the form of a celebration. In early 2008, there was going to be a reception to mark the anniversary of the Iranian Revolution. It was the kind of event that senior Hezbollah officials might attend. The kind of event where Mugnia might feel comfortable showing his face, at least briefly. The intelligence teams worked to confirm whether Mugnia would be there. Through their sources, through intercepted communications, through every means at their disposal, they tried to pin down whether the ghost would appear. And finally, they got confirmation. Imad Mugnia was planning to attend a gathering in Damascus on February 12, 2008. Now they faced a difficult decision. They knew he would be in Damascus, but they didn't know exactly where he would be at any given moment during the evening. They couldn't just bomb the entire neighborhood. They needed precision. They needed to know exactly where he would be and when. This is where some incredible tradecraft came into play. Mossad operatives, possibly with help from local agents, managed to identify the car that Mugnier would be using that night. Some reports say they had a source who told them which vehicle. Others say they figured it out through surveillance. Either way, they knew which car would be his. They decided to use a car bomb. It was risky. Damascus was a capital city, filled with security personnel. Getting a bomb into the city, placing it, and detonating it without getting caught would be extremely difficult. But it was also the most reliable way to kill Mugnier. A drone strike or missile attack might miss. It might cause too much collateral damage. It might even be attributed to Israel openly, which could have diplomatic consequences. A car bomb, on the other hand, could be blamed on any number of enemies Mugnier had made over the years. According to various reports, the operation was a joint CIA-Mossad effort. The Americans reportedly provided the technology for the bomb itself. It was a sophisticated device designed to be detonated remotely with extreme precision. The Israelis provided the operational capabilities on the ground in Damascus. The bomb was placed in the headrest of the spare tire on the back of a Mitsubishi Pajero that intelligence indicated Mugnier would be using. Some accounts say it was placed weeks in advance. Others say it was placed just before the operation. Either way, the device was in place and ready. On the night of February 12, 2008, Mugnier attended the celebration in Damascus. He was reportedly in good spirits. He had survived for so long. He had beaten the Americans. He had beaten the Israelis. He had become a legend in his world. After all these years, maybe he allowed himself to believe that he was untouchable. Around 10:30 that night, Mugnier left the gathering and walked to his car. He got into the Pajero and prepared to drive away. The streets were quiet. It was just another night in Damascus. Just another night for a ghost who had escaped death so many times before. Then, the bomb detonated. The explosion was massive but controlled. It destroyed the vehicle and killed Mugnier instantly. He never knew what hit him. After 25 years of evading the best intelligence agencies in the world, after changing his face, after never using phones, after never sleeping in the same place twice, after all of it, the ghost was dead. The news of his death sent shockwaves through the Middle East and beyond. Hezbollah initially refused to confirm it. Then, when they did, they vowed revenge. Iranian officials called it an act of war. Syria launched an investigation, but never identified the killers. And in Israel and the United States, there was quiet satisfaction that one of the most dangerous men on earth was finally gone. But how exactly did the operation work? Let me break it down in more detail because the technical aspects are fascinating. The bomb itself was reportedly built into the spare tire that was mounted on the back of the Pajero. This was a common design for that type of vehicle, where the spare tire is visible and accessible from the outside. By hiding the explosive inside the headrest of the spare tire, the bombers ensured that the blast would be directed forward into the driver's seat. The triggering mechanism was apparently based on satellite communication. An operator, possibly thousands of miles away, was watching the scene through some form of surveillance. When Mugnier got into the car and was confirmed to be in the driver's seat, the signal was sent. The bomb exploded within seconds. This level of precision required incredible intelligence and technical capability. You had to know which car he would use. You had to get access to that car. You had to install a bomb without being detected. You had to have real-time surveillance of the scene. And you had to have communication systems that could send a detonation signal instantly. Only a handful of intelligence agencies in the world could pull off something like this. And on that night, they did. There are some interesting details about the aftermath as well. The Syrian government tried to cover up the assassination at first. They removed the body quickly. They cleaned up the scene. They didn't want the world to know that such a high-profile killing had happened in their capital, under their noses. It was embarrassing. It showed that their security wasn't as good as they claimed. Hezbollah held a massive funeral for Mugnier. Thousands of people attended. The group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, gave a speech vowing that Israel would pay for what they had done. He said that no Israeli target anywhere in the world was now off limits. For a time, there were real fears of a major retaliation attack. And there have been some incidents over the years that might be connected. In 2012, a bus carrying Israeli tourists was bombed in Bulgaria, killing 5 Israelis Israelis and their Bulgarian driver. Israeli intelligence blamed Hezbollah and suggested it might be revenge for Mugnieh. In 2013, a Hezbollah operative was arrested in Cyprus while apparently planning an attack on Israelis. There have been other incidents as well, some confirmed and some suspected. But the massive, earth-shaking retaliation that Hezbollah promised never really came. Some analysts think this is because Mugnieh's death actually weakened the organization's operational capabilities. He was that important. Without him, they simply couldn't pull off the kind of sophisticated attacks he had been known for. Others think Hezbollah decided that the costs of a major retaliation would be too high. Israel was clearly willing and able to strike at their most protected leaders. Launching a big attack might provoke even more assassinations. Let me also talk about the significance of this operation in the broader context of intelligence and counterterrorism. The killing of Imad Mugnieh is considered one of the most successful targeted killings in history. It demonstrated several important things. First, it showed that no one is truly untouchable. Mugnieh had spent 25 years evading some of the most powerful intelligence agencies on Earth. He had changed his face, avoided technology, and hidden in protected countries. But in the end, patience and persistence won out. The people hunting him never gave up. They kept collecting intelligence, recruiting sources, and waiting for an opportunity. And when that opportunity came, they were ready. Second, it showed the value of intelligence cooperation. The CIA and Mossad had not always worked well together. There had been tensions and mistrust over the years. But when they combined their resources and capabilities on this target, they achieved something neither could have done alone. American technology and Israeli operational skills complemented each other perfectly. Third, it showed how important human intelligence remains, even in the digital age. All the satellites and intercepts in the world wouldn't have been enough to find Mugnieh. He was too careful. In the end, it was human sources, people on the ground who could observe and report, who provided the crucial information. This is a lesson that intelligence agencies continue to learn and relearn. Technology is powerful, but it can't replace having people in the right places. Now let's talk about what happened after Mugnieh's death, because the story doesn't end there. His killing didn't destroy Hezbollah. The organization continued to operate and in many ways continued to grow. They became a major player in the Syrian civil war, sending thousands of fighters to support the Assad regime. They continued to build up their rocket and missile arsenal. They remained a powerful force in Lebanese politics, but they never quite replaced Mugnieh. Some analysts argue that the organization became more cautious after his death, more political, less willing to conduct the kind of spectacular terrorist attacks that had been his specialty. Whether this is because of his absence or because of other factors is hard to say. But it's notable that Hezbollah's operational profile changed after 2008. For Israel and the United States, the killing of Mugnieh was a major victory, but it didn't solve the problem of Hezbollah. The group remains one of Israel's most significant adversaries. The threat they pose, with their arsenal of rockets and missiles, their trained fighters, and their support from Iran, is arguably greater than ever. Killing one man, even one as important as Mugnieh, couldn't change that fundamental reality. But at the same time, removing him from the equation did have an impact. He was a unique figure. His combination of tactical genius, operational security, and ruthless effectiveness was rare. Finding someone to replace those qualities wasn't easy, and every year he wasn't planning attacks was a year those attacks didn't happen. There's also a psychological aspect to consider. For decades, Mugnieh had been untouchable. He had become a symbol of how terrorism could succeed, how one dedicated man could defy the world's most powerful countries. His death shattered that myth. It showed that even the most careful, most protected terrorists can be found and killed. This sent a message not just to Hezbollah, but to terrorist organizations everywhere. No one is safe. Let me also address some of the ethical and legal questions that operations like this raise. Targeted killings are controversial. Critics argue that they amount to extrajudicial execution, killing someone without trial or legal process. They worry about mistakes, about innocent people being killed. They question whether such operations actually reduce terrorism or whether they create more enemies. Supporters argue that in cases like Mugnieh, Traditional law enforcement was impossible. He was operating in countries that protected him. He couldn't be arrested and put on trial, and he was actively planning and directing attacks that killed innocent people. In this view, targeted killing was the only realistic option. These debates continue to this day, and they're important. But in the case of Mugnia, most observers, even those critical of targeted killings in general, acknowledge that he was a legitimate target. His record of mass murder was well documented. His role in ongoing terrorist activities was clear, and the threat he posed was real and immediate. Another thing worth discussing is how this operation fits into the longer history of Israeli targeted killings. Mossad has a long track record of hunting down and eliminating individuals deemed threats to Israel. From the assassinations of Palestinian leaders after the Munich Olympics massacre in 1972 to more recent killings of Iranian nuclear scientists, Israel has shown a willingness to use lethal force against its enemies wherever they are. The Mugnier operation was consistent with this history, but also represented something new: the level of technical sophistication, the patience involved, and the cooperation with American intelligence made it a particularly complex undertaking. It set a template for future operations, showing what's possible when intelligence agencies commit sufficient resources to a target over a long enough period. Let me now share some perspectives from people who were involved or who have studied this case closely. Former intelligence officials have spoken about the operation, though usually in guarded terms. One former CIA officer described Mugnier as the most capable terrorist we ever faced, and called his death a significant blow to Hezbollah's capabilities. A former Mossad official reportedly said that finding Mugnier was the longest and most difficult manhunt in our history, and that his elimination was a moment of justice for all his victims. Hezbollah, for their part, continues to honor Mugnier as a martyr and hero. They hold annual commemorations of his death. They name streets and buildings after him. For them, he remains a symbol of resistance against Israel and the West. His image appears on posters and banners throughout areas controlled by the organization. This clash of narratives is a reminder that terrorism and counterterrorism are not just about operations and intelligence, they're also about stories and symbols. Mugnia was a mass murderer to some and a freedom fighter to others. His death was justice to some and an act of war to others. These different perspectives will probably never be reconciled. Now let me talk about some of the mysteries that still surround this operation. Despite years of reporting and investigation, there are aspects of the Mugnia killing that remain unclear. For example, the exact nature of the CIA's involvement is still debated. Some accounts describe it as a full partnership, with American officers directly participating in planning and execution. Others suggest the American role was more limited, perhaps providing technology and intelligence, but leaving the actual operation to Mossad. There are also questions about how the bomb was planted. Getting access to Mugnier's vehicle without being detected would have been extremely difficult. He was presumably protected by Syrian security as well as his own people. How did the bombers get to the car? Did they have inside help? These details have never been fully explained, and there are questions about timing. Why February 2008? The hunt for Mugnier had been going on for decades. What made this moment the right one to strike? Was it simply that the opportunity finally presented itself? Or were there other factors at play, perhaps related to the broader strategic situation in the region? These mysteries may never be fully solved. Intelligence agencies don't typically reveal their methods even years after an operation, and the people most directly involved have strong reasons to stay quiet. So we may never know the complete story of how Imad Mugnia was finally tracked down and killed. But what we do know is impressive enough. 25 years of hunting, multiple failed attempts, a target who changed his face, avoided technology, and never followed patterns. And yet, in the end, they got him. It's a testament to what intelligence agencies can accomplish when they're patient, persistent, and committed. So what are the lessons we can take from this story? There are several, and they're relevant to anyone interested in intelligence, security, or the fight against terrorism. Lesson 1 is that patience matters. The hunt for Mugnia lasted a quarter of a century. Most people would have given up long before that, but the agencies involved kept at it. They kept collecting intelligence, kept recruiting sources, kept waiting for an opportunity. In an age when everyone expects instant results, this kind of long-term thinking is rare and valuable. Lesson 2 is that human sources are irreplaceable. All the technology in the world couldn't find Mugnier. What finally made the difference intelligence was having people on the ground who could provide information about his movements. No satellite can tell you which car a target will be driving or which event he'll attend. Only a human source can do that. Lesson 3 is that cooperation between agencies pays off. The CIA and Mossad, despite their differences, came together to eliminate a common enemy. By combining their different strengths, they achieved something neither could have done alone. This model of cooperation has continued in other operations since then. Lesson 4 is that even the most careful people can be found. Mugnier did almost everything right. He changed his appearance. He avoided electronic communication. He never followed patterns. He stayed in protected areas. And yet, he was still tracked down and killed. This should be sobering for anyone who thinks they can completely evade detection. Given enough time and resources, determined hunters can find almost anyone. And lesson 5 is that no single operation can solve a strategic problem. Killing Mugnier was a significant achievement, but it didn't destroy Hezbollah or end the threat they pose. Targeted. Killings are a tool, not a solution. They can remove dangerous individuals and disrupt organizations, but they can't change the underlying conditions that produce terrorism in the first place. Before I wrap up, let me share one more thing that I find fascinating about this story. After Mugnier was killed, investigators found something interesting about his life in his final years. Despite all his paranoia and security measures, he had apparently been living something closer to a normal life than anyone expected. He had been spending time with his family. He had been attending social events. He had been, in his own way, trying to enjoy the life he had built for himself. This humanizes him in a strange way. He wasn't just a terrorist mastermind. He was also a father, a husband, a person who wanted to see his children and participate in celebrations. Of course, this doesn't excuse anything he did. The hundreds of people he killed also had families. They also wanted to live normal lives, and he took that from them. But it's a reminder that even the most dangerous people are still people. They have motivations and desires and weaknesses. And sometimes those very human qualities are what lead to their downfall. Mugnier's desire to attend that celebration in Damascus, to be part of the community he had helped build, may have been what finally allowed his enemies to catch him. The ghost, in the end, wanted to be human, and that's what got him killed. This story also raises interesting questions about the nature of intelligence work. The people who hunted Mugnier for all those years, what drove them? For some, it was probably professional duty. It was their job, and they wanted to do it well. For others, it might have been personal. Maybe they knew someone who died in one of his attacks. Maybe they simply couldn't stand the idea of this man getting away with murder. Intelligence officers don't often talk about these motivations. The profession has a tradition of emotional detachment. You're supposed to be objective, analytical, focused on the mission rather than your feelings. But I suspect that in a case like Mugnier, emotions played a bigger role than anyone would admit publicly. How could they not? This was a man who had killed so many people, who had caused so much suffering. Wanting him dead wasn't just strategic, it was human. And now, decades later, the story of Imad Mugnier is part of the history of intelligence and counterterrorism. It's studied in courses and analyzed in reports. It's been the subject of books and documentaries and news articles. The ghost who couldn't be found has become one of the most documented targets in the history of modern espionage. But behind all the analysis and documentation, there's a simple truth. A man who killed hundreds of innocent people evaded justice for 25 years. And then, one night in Damascus, justice finally found him. That's really what this story is about.
And that was the Mossad. Back in a minute.
Nothing worth doing ever came easy. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Never, ever quit. Never quit. Adversity makes you stronger. Don't give in, don't back down, and never stop doing what you know is right. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedoms. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way.
When they couldn't beat him, they tried to bankrupt him.
President Trump is back in a New York City court.
When that didn't work, they tried to put him in federal prison.
Raided by the FBI.
When that didn't work, they even tried to kill him.
He just tried to kill President Trump.
Donald Trump still stands, ready to fight, ready to win, and ready to make America great again.
This is Donald Trump's house, brother.
This election, we all get to choose. I'm going to choose real American leadership and a real American values. The 45th and soon to be 47th President Donald J. Trump.
Starting on day one, we will defeat inflation quickly and we will make America affordable again. I will cut your energy costs in half. It's time for the working man and woman to finally catch a break. We are going to bring back the American dream bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. When I'm back in the White House, we will restore world peace, and it will be again peace through strength. I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. I will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country. November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America. We all salute the same great American flag. Our best days are yet to come. Together, we will make America great again.
America is a land of heroes, a place where greatness is born, where destinies are forged and where legends come to life. This is the home of Thomas Edison and Teddy Roosevelt, of many great generals including Washington, Pershing, Patton, and MacArthur. This is the home of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Earhart, Harriet Tubman, the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, and so many more. This is the country where children learn names like Wyatt Earp, Davy Crockett, and Annie Oakley. This is the place where the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth and where Texas patriots made their last stand at the Alamo. The American nation was carved out of the vast frontier by the toughest, strongest, fiercest, and most determined men and women ever to walk on the face of the earth. Our ancestors braved the unknown, tamed the wilderness, settled the Wild West, lifted millions from poverty, disease, and hunger, vanquished tyranny and fascism, ushered the world to new heights of science and medicine, laid down the railroads, dug out the canals, raised up the skyscrapers. Our ancestors built the most exceptional republic ever to exist in all of human history, and we are making it greater than ever before. This is our glorious and magnificent inheritance. We are Americans. We are pioneers. We are the pathfinders. We settled the new world. We built the modern world, and we changed history forever by embracing the eternal truth that everyone is made equal by the hand of Almighty God. America is the place where anything can happen. America is the place where anyone can rise. And here, on this land, on this soil, on this continent, the most incredible dreams come true. This nation is our canvas, and this country is our masterpiece. We look at tomorrow and see unlimited frontiers just waiting to be explored. Our brightest discoveries are not yet known. Our most thrilling stories are not yet told. Our grandest journeys are not yet made. The American age, the American epic, the American adventure has only just begun. Our spirit is still young. The sun is still rising. God's grace is still shining. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come.
is a movement like we've never seen in the history of our country.
Wisconsin is Trump country.
And that's what this fight is all about. We're taking on the failed political establishment and restoring government of, by, and for the people. It's the people. You're the people. You won the election.
We love this country. We love Donald Trump.
Promises made, promises kept.
We support President Trump.
This is epic.
Donald Trump is our president!
With every last ounce of heart and hope and sweat and soul, we are going to make our stand. We are going to stand for liberty. We are going to stand for justice. We are going to stand for freedom. And we are going to stand for the sacred rights given to us by the hand of Almighty God. You joined our movement, the greatest movement in the history of our country. You protected your family. You defended your dignity. You recaptured your destiny. And you took back your country with that great election 2.5 years ago. We are one united movement, one united people, and one United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
You have always been loyal to this nation. Now you finally have a president who is loyal to you. Every day between now and November 2020, we are going to keep on working, we are going to keep on fighting, and we are going to keep on winning, winning, winning. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you. If I give you one message to hold in your hearts today, it's this. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep pushing forward. Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. In America, we don't worship government, we worship God. My administration will always support and defend your religious liberty. There is nothing that we cannot do. There is absolutely nothing we cannot match. There is no challenge that you will let us down. You will never let us down. The people of Ohio will never let us down. This towering American spirit has prevailed over every challenge and lifted us to the summit of human endeavor. At no time before have voters faced a clearer choice between two parties, two visions, two philosophies, or two agendas. This election will decide whether we save the American dream or whether we allow a socialist agenda to demolish our cherished destiny. Your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans or whether we give free rein to violent anarchists, agitators, and criminals who threaten our citizens. And this election will decide whether we will defend the American way of life or whether we will allow a radical movement to completely dismantle and destroy it. Our radical Democrat opponents are driven by hatred, prejudice, and rage. They want to destroy you, and they want to destroy our country as we know it. I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
4 years ago, we took a wrong turn and lost our purpose. We lost the strength that makes Americans who we are. If we dared to speak the truth, it was called hate speech, and our values were labeled shameful. That's when everything we care about fell apart. We surrendered our borders, our paychecks, and our courage. Our patriotism was called toxic. Men could beat up women and win medals, but there was no prize for the guy who got up every day to do his job. Now we're being asked to settle for the way things are. And we're wondering if America can make a comeback. We can, because we've done it before. When we get knocked down, we don't stay down. We get up again. We fight. We fight. We fight.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message. What will we do with this moment? How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we the people choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
This country, and it's the people who are making America great again.
Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.